Hi everyone, it's Christine from Christine's Stampin' Spot. I am an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, and I'm really excited to share today's card with you. This is the card that we're going to be making today, and I just think it's so beautiful. As you can see, there's some glitter and some embossing, and then some dry embossing over here. There's some copper metallic thread behind the sentiment. It's just a beautiful, beautiful, classy, elegant card, and it's so easy to put together. So let's go ahead and get started. This card uses the beautiful Promenade stamp set, as well as the coordinating beautiful layers Thinlit dies. These can be purchased together as a bundle, saving you 10%, or you can purchase them separately if you prefer. Don't forget, my currently open for registration online card class uses this bundle. So I will link below in the description box of this video to the video that I did explaining that card class. Registration is still open through Monday, which is tomorrow. So if you like what you see here today with this stamp set in action, I definitely recommend you sign up for that online card class. It's a fantastic class, and I'm really happy with the cards I designed for that class, and I think you'll love them. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and get started with how we made this card for today. So as you can see, the first thing that I did was I went ahead and stamped this beautiful flower. Now this flower is two-step. You can obviously just stamp the one for a card design and maybe color it in or something like that, but it also has this set, which is the inside of it. So you can do different colors, different gradations of color, what have you, with this two-step stamp set. It is photopolymer, making the two-step process very easy to do. Normally, when I am doing a card like this, or a two-step stamping process like this, I would stamp this one first, then this one. But because, as you can see in the finished card here, I use copper embossing powder for the outer image. So I'm going to stamp the inside image first this time. So let me show you what I mean. What I'm going to go ahead and do is get that inside image. I've already got that on my block ready to go. And again, that's this image right here, the inside of the flower. Because these are photopolymer, I'm going to bring over my Stampin' Pierce mat just for some extra cushioning underneath the stamping surface. And I'm also just going to bring some scratch paper over. And then just a scrap piece of Whisper White cardstock. You don't need a full special size piece or anything, because we are going to be cutting this out with the coordinating framelit dies. The inks that we're going to be using today are Coastal Cabana, Berry Burst, and then Versamark for our embossing. Okay, so let's start with the Coastal Cabana. We'll go ahead and open up our Coastal Cabana ink pad here, and we're just going to go ahead and stamp the inside of our flower image. So just get it nice and inked up, and then press down evenly and lift up, and that is the beautiful inside of our flower. I'm going to go ahead and clean this stamp set off super quick off camera here so I can reuse this block. And now I'm going to go ahead and take the inside image of the flower off my acrylic block and replace it with the outer image. And this is the image that we will be embossing with our copper embossing powder. So the first thing that you want to do is, after you place this on your block, you can go ahead and close up your Coastal Cabana ink pad for now. Then you want to grab your embossing buddy. The purpose of an embossing buddy is sometimes when you know, we touch paper or what have you and then pour embossing powder over it, it's going to stick to the Versamark ink, but it's also going to stick to our fingerprints, and that makes our embossing not look very clean. So what we may have splotches everywhere. So what the embossing buddy does is it will make it so that that embossing powder will only stick to the Versamark ink. So I'm going to go ahead and just wipe this. You just need a couple passes over your image here with your embossing buddy, and you can just put it away. Super simple, but I can't do embossing without this. It's very inexpensive, and I can't recommend it enough. Now we're going to take our Versamark ink, and we are going to go ahead and ink up the outer image of our flower here. Get it nice and inked up in that Versamark ink. And now you want to peer through your block here. These are see-through clear photopolymer stamps, as I said, so you just want to peer through your block and get it positioned correctly. Now if my head gets in the frame here, I apologize. It's a little bit more difficult stamping it this way than the other way, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, but because I'm doing this embossing, I have to stamp this part second instead of first. So let me just, and again, if my head is in, I apologize. I'm just trying to get this lined up here, and you have to just get your head right over it. It's not hard. You just have to get your head positioned kind of perfectly, and that's hard to do on camera. So I'm going to do the best I can while being on camera here. Push this down. Okay, and then lift it up. We can go ahead, we're done with our Versamark ink, so we can put that away. I'm going to grab my Stampin' Up! Copper embossing powder, and I just pour the little tubs into these larger containers. I just find them a little easier to work with, and I can fit the spoon in here too, which helps me scoop it out. And I'm just going to pour this embossing powder over the flower. As you can see, it's only going to stick to where I put that embossing powder. Inevitably, you're going to get a little bit somewhere, and all you have to do is turn your paper over and just slightly tap the back, and that should take care of it for you. There we go. So now we have our embossing powder exactly where we want it. Let's go ahead and put the lid on our embossing powder, and then you're going to want to grab your heat tool, and you're going to want to put it on the second notch. The first notch is really just for setting ink, like maybe if you were stamping on a window sheet or something like that. But when you're embossing with embossing powder, you always want to put it up to number 2 on your heat tool. Let it warm up, and then you just simply melt this embossing powder. Hopefully this will show up on camera. I love watching it melt. It's so cool. It really is like magic. I like to kind of wiggle the heat gun around a little bit until it starts to melt. There we go. I don't know if this is showing up, but it's starting to change. And it's beautiful. I love the copper embossing powder. It is one of my favorites. It is so beautiful. I will pull this up to the camera in just a moment and show you just how beautiful this is. Look how gorgeous that is. I just think that is so beautiful, and I just love the copper color. Okay, so the next thing that we want to do, we have 2 different stamps on our floral stamps on our finished card here. So we just did this one with the embossing, and I want to stamp this little flower right here that also has a coordinating framelit. So I'm going to stamp it on the same piece of Whisper White cardstock. I'm going to grab the Berry Burst for this particular floral arrangement. We're going to get this inked up here. And I'm just going to kind of turn it because, again, we're cutting these out with die cut, so it doesn't matter how they appear on the cardstock. So I'm just going to stamp this down and lift up. Very pretty. Okay, go ahead and clean that off, and I'll clean the Versamark off the first stamp because I forgot to do that. Okay, we are done with our Berry Burst. We can go ahead and close that one up and put that away. So now the next step would be to go ahead and take our coordinating thinlits, and you would simply position them around where you've stamped and then run them through their big shot, through your big shot. And I like to use my magnetic plate for cutting like this because it really helps those die cuts stay in place. And then you just run it through your big shot. Now, to save time for the video purposes, I already went ahead and did that. So here's what it looks like cut out, our 2 little pieces here. Okay, and I can save this for another card. So here's what they look like cut out. So now it's time to go ahead and finish putting this card together. We have one more thing to stamp, and that would be the sentiment. But again, to save some time, I already went ahead and did that. And I just stamped that actually with my, I forgot to mention when I was going through the inks, with my Memento Tuxedo Black ink. And I stamped the You're My Everything sentiment on a piece of Berry Burst cardstock. And then I just simply used my triple banner punch to make that little tag or banner punch at the bottom of the sentiment there. That is a great punch. I love this punch and I use it quite often. Definitely recommend that punch. Okay, so this consists of all of the stamping we need to do. For right now, we're going to stamp one more panel. So we can set all of these things aside. And now I want to grab my, let's see here. Let me just find it super quick. I don't know where I put it. Here we go. Okay, these are the Stitch Season Framelit dies, and they coordinate with the beautiful Blended Seasons stamp set. I've done a video on this before. This is a special limited edition stamp and bundle set that is only available while supplies last for the month of August, and August is almost over, so the availability of this is almost gone. And I've had several of you buy this from me, and I have heard nothing but great things from you guys, so I definitely recommend picking one of these up while you still can. The stamp set in and of itself is absolutely gorgeous, as you can see, but the dies you can use with really any project you're working on. And so what I did is I took this stitched die shape here and I cut it out, and that's this piece right here. And as you can see, it has this beautiful stitching all around this beautiful shape here. And that comes from this die set. Again, that's the Stitched Seasons framelit dies. And they're just absolutely fabulous. So I'm gonna go ahead and bring this shape over, and I cut this out of Coastal Cabana cardstock. I think it's so beautiful. Oh my gosh, I'm so sad that these dies are leaving us, because I think they're absolutely wonderful. I'm going to go ahead and grab my Coastal Cabana ink pad. And now I'm going to use this image right here from the stamp set. So let me get that out very quickly here. And I'm just going to be stamping this in Coastal Cabana ink on this Coastal Cabana panel. So it's going to be like a tone on tone kind of look. And so it's going to be a very subtle look. And this is just a great kind of way to make your own background paper, essentially. It's just going to give a little texture to this background panel, because of course in this bottom part here is where we're going to have our big flower and that sort of thing. So this just sort of gives a little texture to the background without taking too much attention away from the main star of the show, which is the big flower. So I'm just stamping these willy-nilly here. There's no right or wrong place to put these. I'm letting some of the flower be off onto the scratch paper, and some will be on the actual panel. And I'm just stamping along here. Doesn't really matter, again, where you put these. Anywhere is appropriate. You don't want to go too crazy and have it like everywhere, but you know, just a little bit here and there. And remember, this bottom corner is where everything is going to kind of be, so I'm just going to not really worry too much about that area. And then I am going to put one right here in the middle, because there's going to be a section right here in the middle that you're really going to see, and I thought it would be fun to have that very visible. Okay, so that's all we're doing on that panel. Again, that was Coastal Cabana ink on Coastal Cabana cardstock. And now officially we are done with our stamping. I kept forgetting steps in making this card, so I kept saying we're done with our stamping, and we weren't. But now we are, we really are. Okay, so let's go ahead now and bring over the other components of our card. I have a standard A2 size card base here that's top folding. So this is 11 inches by 4 1/4, and it's scored at 5 1/2. You may want to put a piece of Whisper White cardstock on the inside. This is a fairly light colored cardstock, so if you had a, you know, kind of a bright pen, it probably would be okay. I usually do put white inside my colored card bases. I just didn't think of it for this particular card. I have a piece here of Berry Burst cardstock that's cut at 5 1/4 by 4. I'm sorry, by 4 by 5 1/4, 4 by 5 1/4. And it's going to layer right on top of this piece of Coastal Cabana card base. I also took a piece of our copper foil paper. These are the foil sheets, which is our specialty paper. It is beautiful. And I ran it through my Big Shot using the garden trellis embossing folder. Look at how beautiful that is. So let's go ahead and grab our adhesive, and we're going to first just adhere this flush along the right side of this piece of Berry Burst cardstock. When I have dry embossed panels like this, I like to put extra adhesive simply because it is a little bumpy and we don't want this cardstock moving on us. We want it to make sure that it is adhered soundly and strongly to the panel. So that's why you see me put probably excess adhesive on the back of my dry embossed panels. Okay, so that's going to look like that. And now we can actually go ahead and adhere this to our card base. So let's do that. We'll just center that here on top of this Coastal Cabana card front here, like so. Just like that. Okay. Now, the next step that you would want to do is you would want to run this gorgeous, intricate die from the Coordinating Beautiful Layers Thinlits die set that coordinates with our stamp set through your Big Shot. Now, to save time, I already did this and cut this out with copper foil paper. Isn't that absolutely beautiful, this die cut? I just happened to use copper foil paper on this particular card, but it's beautiful in any color. But anyway, the sandwich that you want to use for cutting this out is your big shot platform, your precision base plate, and your thin die adapter. I'm sorry, big shot platform, thin die adapter, precision base plate, paper, die face down, and then a cutting plate. You run it through, and then you use your fancy little die brush here on the back of the die, and all these little pieces fall right out. And you get this gorgeous, it really comes out so easily, guys. I'm not kidding. If you use that sandwich, it works perfectly every time. So that's this die. And again, to save time, I did go ahead and cut that out. All right, what I want to do is I want to get this piece positioned, because then we're going to be building the bottom, you know, all around this particular piece. So I'm going to flip this over and grab some dimensionals just to give this a little bit of a pop. You can, of course, lie this flush up against the card front if you prefer. You guys, if you've watched any of my videos, you know I love a little bit of pop to my projects, so I tend to use dimensionals quite often. Every time I place an order, I add a pack or two of dimensionals to my order. We get so many in a pack that I really don't feel like I'm being wasteful. So I'm not very frugal with them. I really enjoy that extra little bit of pop to the project. All right, so we have this in place. Now I want to go ahead and get my copper glitter die cut in place. And see how beautiful this tone-on-tone background is on this panel that we cut out. I just thought that was really pretty. It added a nice touch without being overwhelming. So I'm going to grab two dimensionals here and place these on the back of this beautiful intricate die cut. And then I'm just going to go ahead and place this so it's not coming off the card base, but as far in the bottom left corner as I can go, if that makes sense. So I still have it within the confines of the card base, so it'll go in an envelope nicely. But it's still in that far bottom left corner as far as we can go there. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do is we are going to go ahead and we need to make some leaves for our beautiful flower that we have already cut out. Again, this is the flower that we stamped and embossed, and I wanted some leaves for it. So I went ahead and I used this die cut here from the die cut set. Now there's another die cut as well, which are, let me just show you very quickly here, which are these leaves here. And this is a stamp that you could cut out. I just decided for this card to use the die only instead of stamping the leaves down. So what I'm going to do, oh, and by the way, this cardstock, the green leaves were cut from shaded spruce cardstock here. I just thought that I wanted them to stand out and not blend in too much with the background, so you could actually see the leaves. So that's why I made them this kind of brighter green. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip my flower over, okay, and then I'm going to grab my glue dots here. These are our mini glue dots, and I'm going to just adhere, and I like to use my scissors to help me with this. I'm just going to adhere 2 glue dots to the back of my flower. And then we're going to stick our leaves to the back of the flower on top of the glue dots. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay. And I didn't really take too much time to plan where I wanted the glue dots because the leaves are just going to peek. See, they're just kind of peeking out there. And you can fiddle with them too once you've laid them down. The glue dots are pretty forgiving, so you can kind of move it around and get it exactly where you want it. I think I'm going to want this right about here. I think that looks good. Now let's flip it back over and stick this one down and then fiddle with it till we get this one where we want it. And I think that looks good. Okay. And now we're going to flip it over again and we're going to grab our dimensionals again. And what we're going to do is we're just going to stick the dimensionals, actually let's just stick them on this copper foil here. 2 should do it. And then we're just going to place our beautiful flower right in the middle there. Like so. Isn't that beautiful? I just think that is so gorgeous. I love this stamp set. Now I just decided to place this little one that we've stamped in the Berry Burst and cut out with the coordinating framelit just down here on the bottom right side. So I'm just going to add a couple dimensionals to it, like so. Again, 2 should do it. And I'm just going to stick this down here, and I'm going to scooch it a little bit underneath of the Coastal Cabana panel, just a little bit, because we want this side to be the star of the show, but I just thought this was a pretty little accent here. So finally, the last step is our sentiment, which we're going to put right about here. So we want to flip our sentiment over, and we're going to grab 3 dimensionals. Actually, 2 should do it. Actually, just 2 is fine. We're going to take the backings off of the dimensionals, and then we're going to grab our copper metallic thread. And I'm just going to unwind, whoops, I'm just going to unwind here quite a bit. Just, you know, around, maybe take 2 fingers and just unwind. Maybe 4 or 5 loops around your fingers should do it. Okay, and then just give it a little snip and then pull it off your fingers. And I'm just going to kind of pull it out and then just start winding it along the back here. So it's just going to loop around the back, and you're just going to subtly see little portions of it sticking out from behind your sentiment. And I know this is hard to see on camera, so I will pull this up to the camera when I'm all done so you can see. But all I'm doing is looping this around the back, really letting the thread tell me which direction it wants to go, and I'm just sticking it to the dimensionals that we stuck down to the back. And then when you reach the end, you just stick that down, and now this is what you have. You have your little sentiment panel with just that little bit of subtle thread hanging off the back. So now I'm just going to go ahead and stick this down right about here. Looks good. And that, let me get it straighter there. There we go. And that, guys, is our finished card. And let me just put this thread away so it doesn't unwind on me. I have had that happen before when I haven't taped it back down. And it is not fun to clean that up. Okay, guys, so this is it. This is our finished card, and I think it's so beautiful. I hope you love it, and I hope that this might convince you to try my online card class. The online card class is a beautiful Promenade card class. Again, I will have a link in the description box below to the video of the that explains everything that comes in the card class. It's an absolutely beautiful stamp and die bundle. It's just gorgeous. I love it. It's so much fun to work with, and I think you'll really like the cards that I created for the class. I will also, in the description box below, make sure to click the show more button. I will have a link to my blog, which will have a link to all of the products that were used to create this card. So maybe if you're not interested in the class, but you'd like to pick up some of the products, feel free to do so. You can shop in my online store at any time, 24/7. All right, guys, thank you so much, as always, for stopping by. I can't thank you enough for your support. Have a wonderful day, and I will catch you in the next video. Thanks. Bye-bye.